All right, welcome to another network automation video where I prepare for my new job. This series is now live. I expected my start date to be on Tuesday, the 27th, but unfortunately the onboarding got pushed back a little bit. It's just a whole long process they had to do. I had to go and take a drug test and all that sort of thing. So it took a little longer than expected, but I've got a start date for the 8th, so now is an okay time for this to go live because my 2-week notice I'll be giving on Tuesday, so it's not a bad time for this video to go live. But let's continue on with learning about network automation. So I've got my lab set up, and I got it set up exactly how they wanted it in chapter 4. Now, the problem is where I left off last time, that I was getting a special error that the book was not expecting. So I'll run it again and show that error. Oops, and I did have a command prompt up shortly, but it looks like it just went away. Yep, so I'm not getting that anymore. So I think I'm going to just try stopping and restarting. Luckily with the Ubuntu Docker guest, that can go very quickly. I will check the other devices though. Ah, perfect, so this one's good. This one's good. Let's see if that Ubuntu Docker is going good. I did give it the, okay, so it looks like it is shutting down. Yep, good here as well. Admin, Cisco class. Class, perfect. So yep, everything's good there. So we're going to stop this, okay, and now restart it, and hopefully I'll get that CLI back, and I can demo what the issue has been with the Ansible playbook. Okay, perfect. So I've got 2 folders here at my home directory, pwd. So it's the root directory. I didn't create a new user, but we've got the Git repo that came with the book, and then my own files, just because I do believe that when it comes to learning something on the computer, the best way to do it is to type it out character for character. There's a whole book based around this philosophy called Learn Python the Hard Way. They have that available for other kinds as well. I think if it goes through your hands, it's a lot easier to catch on to than if it's just in your eyes and just kind of gets lost in your brain, especially for someone like me who kind of needs that, I think, a little bit more than other people, that kind of tactile, hands-on, active learning. Okay, so hosts. Oh, so I didn't specify, so you can see what happened here. It's saying you must specify a playbook file to run. Well, I did. This is a playbook file, isn't it? Well, no, it's not, because I did the -I, which tells you inventory, I for inventory. So where's that inventory file that tells you what devices are on your network? Well, I gave it to this as if it were that file. So it's got an inventory file, which of course is not the correct syntax. It's not a valid inventory file, but it's an inventory file nonetheless, the way I called the Ansible Playbook command. But sure enough, I am missing that second file, which would be the Playbook file. But that's easy to correct. The inventory file is going to be named hosts. That's the default name, and that's the name that is recommended to use with Ansible. And here's that error that I was getting. So no action detected in task. So I think the reason I am getting this error is you can see my Ansible version is much different than the book. It's 2.0.0.2. The book is using 2.2.8. So I will need to upgrade that version. Unfortunately, I just did a regular old apt-get install with Ansible, and that's the version I got. So that's not going to be a valid version for me. So I will need to find a way to bring that up to speed. There was a whole section in the book for how to do that, but I was not able to get to that in the last video. So I think I'm going to start with that in this video. Yeah, so this is the section that tells you how to change it. So we can do it from the source code, or we can do it through a installation. But I think I'd rather do it through the source code. I think that's going to be a little bit easier. And not only that, I will have more options. I'll be able to use anyone. So I won't have this situation I'm in now where I run the command and I don't know clearly what the results of the command are. It's going to be more information, perhaps more difficult to use, but I will get to the option that I need instead of just being subjected to the default option, which might not be the right option for me. So I'm going to do apt get, or I think it's, yeah, apt get, and then remove Ansible. So I only want to have it be on here by way of the source code, not of just the installation this way through apt-get. So there's instructions in the book for how to do that. It's going to be it's going to be right here. So git clone. Oops, and I might have put that in, I put that in the My Files directory. I'm going to stop that because I don't want it there. I want it in my home directory. So cloning into Ansible. I'll pause the recording and come back. I'm not sure how long this is going to take, and I need to fill up some water. All right, good news all around. We've got the Ansible source code downloaded. So now we can use this special technique taught in this book to set up any version we would like. So let's set up version 2.8.5. Okay, so right now we're running 2.10.0. which is a development version, so we get a warning saying that we're using a development version. We're not going to want to use that version though. We're going to want to use 2.8.5, which is a stable version. So it'll be in this branch. Yep, 2.8.5. Okay. Perfect. Now we've got 2.8.5. So let's try that again. Yep, so this is all we need to do. So now that we've got 2.8.5, let's skip ahead to that bookmark. Okay. And now try running the playbook. I'm just going to see if I can, yep. I was just curious if there would be any issues no longer being in that folder that had the Git repository. But it looks like no matter what folder I'm in, I have the ability to access Ansible, and the version is 2.8.5. Okay, so we've got a little bit of better output here. We got the play recap, which is kind of the main thing to look at to determine what happened. So we can see what happened was we got failures. We got a failure for each device. We've also got a fatal warning here, unable to automatically determine host network OS. Please manually configure Ansible network OS value for this host. So it looks like the module does not have the ability to detect the OS, which is interesting because I figured it would. So let's look at what it was meant to return. So we'll see the following output. So we have seen all the elements before, okay. Okay, so we can probably check the, yeah, so let's do a, we'll do a CD to the root directory and then a find-name. Nope, so there's no file with that name. Let's see if there's any file contents that have that. Oh, all sorts of file contents. Got some permission denied as well. Let's see if I can do sudo. I thought there was no sudo on this. Yep. So let's see. I can do also type grep -v permission. Oops, and get rid of sudo. There you go. So any of those permission denied. Oops. Okay, well, that didn't work the way I expected it to, but that's okay. Okay, so this is what's important here. Looking at this module and seeing what hosts it can detect automatically using the, yeah, so these are all for chapter 4. Aha, so here we go. Host variables, Ansible network, OS. So yeah, we've got to update those host vars. So let's go into the home directory and then my files. And we can see all we've got here are hosts and chapter 5_1. So I'll cut out the hosts. This is just the name of the section, so we can reference multiple entries per section just by giving the section name. But there's no further information. So if I go to the GitHub repo included with the book, and I look at the hosts file here, it looks the same. But if I look at the chapter.yml, okay, I don't see host vars in here. Nope, I don't see host vars in there, but I do notice a host vars file here that's highlighted in blue. Oh, it's a directory, not a file. Okay, so it looks like I need these files for each of my hosts that I'll be looking at. Kind of a problem because yeah, so I was just using etc hosts. If I do a by etc hosts, you can see I've got mappings here is how I was able to reach those devices. But let's do it by the book. So in the way the book is saying to say it, oops. There we go. You wouldn't have a DNS mapping there. You would use the features of Ansible to map the host name to the IP address. And you would do that with this special host vars directory. So let's add that directory to my own directory that contains these playbooks. Okay, so I will save this, and we'll have to change this around. And this is something that was explained in the chapter discussing the best practices for Ansible. You can do it, of course, in many different ways, but the best practice is to have this host vars folder. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is do a search for host vars and reread the section of the book that explained what this is for. Oops. Don't see that section of the book. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't see an explanation for this host vars directory in the book anywhere. Okay, but that's okay. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what it's for. It's just for those mappings between the IP address and the host name. Okay, so let's go into that now that I've created it. And then I will do nano. And then, of course, I'll need the name that I'm actually using. So let's do a ls. And then my files. So let's do a cat. And then hosts. So here's the name of the devices I'm using. So in the host vars file, which is where I am now, I'll do nano iosv-1. Okay, and now I saved all of the information that I'll need. So I'm going to be using a different Ansible host. So it's going to be 192.168.0.1. And then it's going to be admin Cisco class. Oh, so this is the method for getting those elevated permissions. But so I can just have this say no, because I gave it privilege 15, so it won't need to enter enable and then an enable password because it has privilege 15. So I'm assuming I can just delete these lines, but we will see. So hopefully this is all it needs. So I'll create a file like this for all of my devices. Now, this is where it might differ because, oh, no, it's going to be the same for this one. For routers 3 and for the other routers, I will have to change the network OS, and then I'll have to verify that it has put 15 on those as well. But let's check the topology. Oh, so this is actually going to be 3 and not 2. Okay, so now we've only got 2 left, but these are going to be different OSs. It's going to be Nexus instead of iOS. But I don't know what is required to include there in order to make it Nexus. Oops, and the other thing I don't know is if it will require enable mode or if it will take me right to the privilege exec mode because it has privilege 15 enabled. Or if it works at all. I thought I had it set up and working, but apparently there could be issues with it. It looks like it's timing out. So it could be anything. It could be that rollback bug. I thought I did a copy run start on it, but I might have accidentally not done that. Oh, so yeah, I can't ping any of them. Let's check the route table. Aha, so you can see my route that I added is missing. Oh, and my IP is missing as well. So luckily enough, that's not difficult to add. So it's going to be config, ifconfig, and then it's going to be eth0, add 192 dot, or sorry, it's going to be 172.16 dot, oh wait, no. Yep. So 172.16.1.2/30. And I'll need to double check that. But I believe that is what it's going to be. It's going to be the iOS v-2 connected to port 9, or sorry, port 4. Yep, so you can see I got my description there. Lent myself a hand. Thank you, past self, for making it easier on my future self. And my future self looks like I was close, but it's going to be .0 instead of .1 in the third octet. Oops, and I can't do that. I'm going to need to do perfect. So now I need to add a route statement. Oh, oh, okay. So usually it won't take effect unless I bounce the ETH0. Oh, but it, oh, okay, I see. So I messed up the address on there. So it's this statement that's got a problem. I think it's because I forgot to delete. Oops, del. All right. So I've got to make it so that this is correct. Right now it's not correct. So I believe it's going to be uh, oh, this seemed to work. I don't know how it knew that it needed to be 252, but let's see if we're good to go. We're good to go. Oops, but we're not good to go here. Oh, it looks like the mask here is not accurate. Oh, and the, oh, no. Okay, I did a .1. Oh, yeah, this is not a necessary route, so I'm going to do history pipe grep route. Oops, route. Yep, and now I can get rid of this one. Oh, so now I'm back in business. Okay, it's just that that route went away. Probably when I deleted the address from the interface, it's deleted as well. Oops, and it's only going to go up to 3 because it's including. Oh wait, no. 4 does need to be reachable. So I'm not sure what the deal is with 4. Why it's destination unreachable. Let's try a trace route. So we're getting stuck here. So this does not have a route for 4. So we can see 192.168. Yep, it's missing 4. So I bet you the loopback is not configured, or it's not included in OSPF, or all of the above. Oh, or the device isn't even powered on, it looks like, even though it is powered on. The device is just having issues. Yeah, the device is having issues, so hopefully it won't take too long to restart this. I have a feeling it will, but that's definitely going to need to be live in order for this Ansible playbook to work. But in the meantime, there's plenty of work to do. We're going to need to set up this kind of file for all of the devices. So I'm going to do a cat, and then it's going to be here, and then mastering, and then chapter 5, and then host vars, and then it's going to be, well, let me do a ls to figure it out. Okay, and then we'll do nxos r1. All right, and now cat on that, and we can see the Ansible Network OS is going to be listed as NXOS instead of iOS. Let's see if we need this Ansible become set to yes or no. Okay, so we can set it to no because it's already got the level of privileges that allows it to be in privileged exec mode. So from there, we can go to config T, do anything we want. All right, so this, yep, this is booting up. Oops, and it's stuck at this loader prompt. I remember this happening before. I don't remember how to get out of there. Let's look at the configure and usage. Oh, so nothing in there. So yeah, I don't remember, unfortunately, how to get out of the loader prompt. So no auto boot or failed auto boot, failing to loader. So let's do boot. And then, or let's just do boot. Boot. So it looks like this could work. It's trying it, so I'll just let it do that. And then in the meantime, set up all of these files. So I've already got those two done. So I've just got one more before I need to address the device that is having issues. But I know what it's going to need once it starts to work again. So I can make the file before I work out what the issue is with that other device. Okay, but now unfortunately I am at a situation where I need to work that out. Aha, and it looks like I made the right choice as to what it requires to boot this up. Hopefully the configuration will persist, but if it does not, there's not much configuration on there anyway, and it will be good to have on this video a demonstration of setting up a simple management network. But I can run this and it will just tell me that it failed for that one device. Oops. Oh, I missed an A. Oh, right, I'm nested too deep. I'm in the wrong folder. I need to go to the folder that this folder is inside of, which is my files. Perfect. So now it is much better results. And you can see, because this playbook was only directed at the iOS devices anyways, and not the NXOS devices, it doesn't matter that this still hasn't booted up yet. We're only targeting these two. And we can see, just as it said in the example, and I'll run this so that the output's a little bit nicer. I'll just run it again. It's idempotent, so it doesn't matter if I run it again. I won't be causing any undue changes. I might be getting different output here because since it's idempotent, if I run it once and this changed value increments, when I run it the second time, it won't increment again because it's idempotent. But all I'm doing, I believe, is just some show commands. So no errors at all, no fails. But we can see that this one was skipped because we had that conditional in there that says when iOS v2 in the output of this show run hostname, we're going to be skipping iOS v1 because we're only going to be showing this output debug when iOS v2 is in the output of this command. So we registered this as output, so we go output.stout. We could, of course, call this anything we wanted, but we called it output, so that's what shows here. So we'll see the results of this show run pipe include hostname. So it's skipping, you can see that it's skipping iOS v1, and we've got a warning, and that's because, of course, iOS v2 is not in the output, so we skip it. Conditional statements should not include Jinja templating delimiters such as that or that, which is interesting. Okay, how do you what should it include if it doesn't include the thing that it has to include? Why can it not? Can I just take these out and have it work? I'm actually going to try that next because this is a strange error message to me. But we can see it skipped iOS v1, but did not skip iOS v2. So we've got a warning saying we're using Python 2, but we've got failed equals false. So it's just a warning. And the standard out gives us hostname OSV2. So print out that standard out here. That is what we get. So let's try modifying this file and see if we can get that message to go away by doing what it wants us to do. So we'll take these away first, and if that doesn't work, we'll take away the quotes as well. Okay, so it didn't give us that error anymore, but it's still not going to work because now we're just seeing if iOS 2 is in the string output.stdout. So is iOS v-2 in output.stdout? Of course it's not. We want to check if it's in this variable here. So output.stdout. So let's go up here. stdout, so this string here. And I'm actually really surprised that I didn't need to specify because this is a list, so I'm surprised I didn't have to treat it as such. So I don't know why it wasn't okay with using those double braces like that, curly braces. But if we forego those curly braces, well, let's try this. Let's try taking this out and then running it again. I think at this point there will be a syntax error. But if it does, yep, so it skipped them both again. So I think it treated it like a regular string again. So it really does have to have those curly braces. So I'm not sure what that message is about. I am curious enough to do a Google search on it. Okay, so let's look at this in a Google search because this doesn't make sense to me. I don't see another way of doing what I need to do without having this trigger. So I don't see anything here. Yep, got nothing in there. Nothing in here either, so. Yeah, don't see anything talking about warnings. Yeah, here we go. So newer versions should raise the following. So I've checked name. Fine. Okay. Oh, is that it? That they want? Let's see here. So this would be, yeah, I guess I'm not sure what they want. I'm going to try one more thing and then move on from this. And that's going to be output like that. And I think it will just skip it as it had been before because it's not a variable. Yep, so got to do it the way, even though it's not happy with that way, it's not providing a viable alternative. So I really don't know what that message is about. This is, as I've said many times before, one of the reasons I really kind of don't like Ansible is because there's just a lot of extra stuff that shows up for reasons that are unexplained. So yes, okay, I know that it doesn't like that syntax and that it warns against using it, but it does not give me an alternative to use. In fact, it looks like there is no alternative. So it does not give me a reason why this is the case. Why does it believe that? And what is the alternative to that? Ah, here we go. So this looks like it's going to explain it. Okay. So it's kind of like, it almost looks like it's a, so, oh. So it looks like we're going to have a set fact somewhere. No, we don't have any set fact, but we do have register output here. So one thing we might be able to do, yeah, Yeah. I honestly don't see how you can write a meaningful playbook without triggering this new warning message. The whole point of Ansible is that things can be modularized into roles. If you want to stop this warning from being triggered, you have no chance unless you are writing flat playbooks with ugly win expressions, examples that are seemingly not able to be worked around, throws warnings, and finally, this is very difficult to work around. So this looks like a very old thing. Well, I mean, he's telling you what to do. He's saying remove the warnings. He's saying either remove the warnings or fix the warning messages so they tell you what you should have done. Yeah, because if it works, I don't see the reason to have a warning message when something works as intended. Especially such a vague warning message that really isn't useful. I mean, it's just telling you should not. What does that mean? Who says? I mean, do you mean should not as in you should not um, overexert yourself? Because you probably should overexert yourself in some cases. So I don't know what should not means. Does it mean should not as in absolutely should not, or just should not because I said so, and that's just not doing that would blow my mind for some reason because I am sheltered and do not see any other way. The should not is not a very helpful thing to say in my opinion. So any warning message that has should not, I think needs to be revised. Now, there is an exception to that. In the RFC, they use should not. So RFC 2199 explains the keywords for use in RFCs to indicate requirement levels. And here they very clearly define what they mean by should or should not. So should not is just a shorthand for not recommended. It means there may exist valid reasons in particular circumstances when the particular behavior is acceptable or even useful, but the full implications should be understood and the case carefully weighed before implementing any behavior described with this label. So I don't know if they're using should not in the same way, but without some further definition to the phrase should not. In my personal opinion, I just don't think that's very useful language to use. And I would like to see the message rewritten in the style of the game Taboo, where they cannot use these words should not. That is my suggestion to them. You can say conditional statements must not. I mean that right there is a lot more um, or may not include, but then it's like, are you sure they may? It's just I think even what would be considered synonyms for should not would be more useful language, though not that much more useful, but I think should not is probably the least useful language you can use, barring some sort of more formal definition as to what the phrase actually means in more depth, as is the case with RFCs. All right, so, but we got that part of the book to work now, exactly as intended. It's just the book wasn't expecting those messages to show up. It doesn't have anything in there written about that. But we can move on to the next example because this 5_1 playbook has worked. So we can see that the iOS v-r1 device is skipped from the output because the clause did not pass. We can further expand this example in chapter 5_2.yml to only apply certain configuration changes when the condition is met. So let's do that and further expand this. Okay, and I'll rename that file to chapter 2. Oh, it didn't rename it because bare word not allowed while strict subs is in use. So that's a bare word, whatever that means. But what I can do is just copy it instead of renaming it. And now I can remove chapter 5_1. Yeah, I've had a lot of problems using renaming in Linux, but you can just copy it and then delete the old file. It's probably a better way to do it anyways, because you, unless of course you're very low on disk space, but then you have both of the files. If something went wrong, you still got that old file. So, like for example, if you copy it and then you misname the new file, oops, now you can delete that new file and you can copy the old file again and just fix the name. That I think is a bit easier. Okay, but let's continue on with the next example. So the next example is going to have more configuration after it within tasks. So it's going to have the same thing here: show hostname, iOS commands, register output, name. But now we're going to have another name. It's going to be config example. Oh, actually, it looks like we're going to just change this. So we're going to have the same number of lines in this playbook, but we're going to make a configuration change now. Instead of showing the output based on a conditional, we're going to be making configuration changes based on a conditional. Yep, and we're going to be using that not recommended syntax. But now we're going to be, instead of this debug, we'll be using iOS config. It will be lines. Oops. Login, buffered. Perfect. So now we can execute this. Hopefully those are no problems. Oops, so there's an offending line. Appears to be a tab character at the start of the line. So no tabs. So here's the tab. Tabs are not allowed. Okay. So we're going to have a changed 1. Aha, changed 1. And now remember, it's idempotent. So if I were to run it again, we'd have a changed 0. Again, note in the execution output that iOS-R2 was the only change applied, while iOS-R1 was skipped. In our case, it's going to be named based on the chapter 4 topology and not the custom names they're using for this example. In this case, the logging buffer size was only changed on iOS-R2. So let's verify that. Show run. There it is, logging buffered /300. Now let's do a show start. So don't see it. We've got logging message counter, syslog, exclamation point, no AAA new model, but in the show run, we've got those same messages, but we've got the extra there. So because it's absent from the show start, Ansible did not do a write operation, which is really, really important, because if this were to reload, it would boot up to an outdated version of the configuration. So kind of unfortunate that this is not preaching that good habits, but in order to set that up, it's just a matter of, I believe, adding another command. So under lines, you would add end and then write, I would think. I'm not sure about that. But this is a reason I would be careful about using Ansible, because something like this that tends to hold your hand and kind of do the heavy lifting for you, I think it's harder to tell whether it's doing a good job or not. Whereas if you're seeing more the nuts and bolts, like if you open up the lid of your car and you see the whole engine, you can tell if something needs grease. Whereas if the car is completely closed, you don't see anything, you've got a mechanic, you can't tell if they greased every part of the engine. And in fact, if you even open the hood and take a look, you wouldn't even know what to check anyways. So that's kind of why I advocate for something like NetMiko, Paramiko, Nornir over something like Ansible in a lot of cases. And I'll admit it might be because I'm just not used to using Ansible as much. But a reason I believe that Ansible could be more of a risk to use over something like that is because its big advantage, being simple to use, all that, is also its big flaw, because you might assume that it's doing something that it's not doing. And in this case, that would be saving the config, and that could be a huge disaster if the devices were to reboot. So, yep, so we can see that it's there, it's in the show run, but it's not in the show start, which is a big problem. Let's double check iOS v1 and see if it was configured. Nope, so iOS v1 was not configured, but that's the expected behavior. We got changed equals 0, we've got skipped equals 1, because it did not satisfy that conditional. The when clause is also very useful in situations when the setup or facts module is used. You can act based on some of the facts that were gathered initially. For example, the following statement will ensure that only the Ubuntu host with major release 16 or greater will be acted upon by placing a conditional statement in the clause. When Ansible OS family equals equals Debian and Ansible lab greater. So Yep. For more conditionals, check out Ansible conditionals documentation. In the next section, we will take a look at how Ansible gathers network device facts and uses them in the context of network playbooks. So I'm going to move ahead my bookmark. And this one is no longer necessary. There we go. Prior to 2.5, Ansible networking shipped with a number of vendor-specific fact modules. The network fact modules exist prior to version 2.5, but the naming and usage was different between vendors. Starting with version 2.5, Ansible started to standardize its network fact modules. The Ansible network fact modules gather information from the system and store the results in facts prefixed with Ansible_net on Ansible dot. So let's see if we've got these files on here. Nothing yet. The data collected by these modules is documented in the return values in the module documentation. This is a pretty big milestone for Ansible networking modules, as it does a lot of heavy lifting for you to abstract the fact gathering process by default. Let's use the same structure we saw in Chapter 4, the Python automation framework, Ansible Facts, Python 2.8 best practices, but expand upon it to see how the iOS_facts module was used to gather facts. As a review, our inventory file contains 2 iOS hosts with the host variables residing in the host_vars directory. Okay, but we're going to have a little bit of a change to our files because we're using the naming specified in the Chapter 4 diagram of the topology. They've decided to use a different name. Oh, it looks like they changed back to using that now. In the last example, they used a different naming. And not only that, we're going to use different username and password credentials. And we're going to give our user account privilege 15, so we will not need to enter the enable password. In fact, there is not currently one set up. Our playbook will have 3 tasks. The first task will use the iOS_facts module to gather facts for both of our network devices. The second task will display certain facts gathered and stored for each of the 2 devices. You will see that the facts we displayed were the default Ansible_net facts, as opposed to a registered variable from the first task. The third task will display all the facts we gathered for the iOS v-1 host. So we're going to make a new playbook called iOS_facts_playbook.yml, and hopefully we'll be getting some of these Ansible_net_dot files. All right, so let's make sure we're in the correct directory. Perfect. And make that new playbook. We've got our hosts file is set up and good to go. Then we've got our host vars directory set up with an entry for each of our hosts. So this I don't quite understand, because to have to create one of these files for every one of the devices in your network, in a network with hundreds of thousands of devices, to me seems to kind of be a bit too much to ask. But I don't think it would be that hard to auto-generate, use like Python scripting to script out and create a bunch of these files. I really don't think that's a very big challenge at all. In fact, if anyone watching this has done anything like HackerRanks or Code Wars, LeetCode, something like that, this is probably a challenge straight from there. So it's really not anything too much to ask for somebody to do, in my opinion. All right, so let's continue. Now, this is interesting because we're going to be displaying facts, but we're setting gather facts to false. So I wish they had more of an explanation for everything. I've constantly expressed my disappointment with this book, but I think just getting exposure to all of this and then having those code examples is going to be pretty valuable. So it's not, I think, worth moving on to a different book at this point, especially if I'm able to use a different book later on. I can get through multiple books. That I think is ideal. So we'll get a warning, I think, for using this, but as they had expressed on Stack Overflow, there really is no way, no alternative to do it in a way that does not return a warning, unfortunately. Okay, so luckily they're using the same naming that we are using, so I won't need to change anything in this playbook. I can just run it exactly as it is given in the book. Oops, and it looks like I created this in my host vars folder. I don't want it to be there, so I'm going to do move iOS facts and then ... So it's no longer here. It's now here. When we run the playbook, you can see that the results for the first two tasks were what we would have expected. So let's see if we get the same answer. So it's going to be Ansible playbook -I hosts iOS. There we go. Oops. So there is a error here. Syntax problem. Oh, wait. Host is not a valid attribute for a play. Host is not a valid attribute for it. Oh, I forgot the S. So in a playbook, most things have an S. I wrote host instead of hosts. Host is not valid. Only hosts is a valid attribute in a playbook. Okay, so here's our play recap. So they all failed. I guess I'm not sure why they all failed. Oops, and it looks like I targeted them all instead of just targeting the specific ones. So yeah, so it looks like they secretly modified their playbook because they say hosts all, but they didn't use a, oh, I guess here they did when Ansible Network OS. Okay, Ansible Network. Oh, I forgot a T. Yep. So down here, so you can see there's no T here. So when I try to call it later, which I don't see where I'm trying to do that. Oh, okay. So it's not that I'm trying to do it, trying to call it later. It's that this is a built-in variable, but only with a T. Okay, so it failed on the ones here instead of skipped, which I'm kind of surprised. I think it was meant to skip it and not fail on it. But let's look at the failure message. Conditional check failed. Network OS is undefined. Okay, well, in any case, this might be another situation like that warning message we got where it's just kind of a unfortunate oversight and it's working the way it is meant to work, just with some extra stuff. When we run the playbook, you can see that the results for the first two tasks were what we would have expected. The third task will display all the network device facts gathered for the iOS devices. There is a ton of information that has been gathered for iOS devices that can help with your networking automation needs. We can see them in a third task. So we should have 3 tasks. So let's see how many tasks we've got. So we've got 1 task here. Display all facts for a host. Another task here, display certain facts. And another task here, gathering facts. So we do have 3 tasks. The network facts module, starting with Ansible 2.5, was a big step forward in streamlining your workflow and brought it on par with other server modules. Network module conditional. Let's look at another network device conditional example by using the comparison keyword we saw at the beginning of this chapter. We can take advantage of the fact that both iOSV and Arista EOS provide the outputs in JSON format for the show commands. For example, we can check the status of the interface. So we're going to need an Arista. And let's see if those special files have come back. So I'll do a history, unless it's in my buffer. Here we go. Nope, so we still don't have any of those special files. So I'm really not sure what the deal is with that. But you can see we did gather a number of facts I just don't see where those facts are stored. Yeah, I just don't see where those facts ended up. I'm sure they're somewhere. Well, I don't even know if they're somewhere or not. Because all we're doing is displaying the facts, we're not saving them anywhere. So I guess that makes sense that they are not saved anywhere. Let's move on. So we're going to need an Arista for this next part. And as I mentioned before, I did have to reboot my server, so I don't currently have an Arista installed, but I believe I still have the file. So we've got CEOS and we've got VEOS for Arista. Let's go with VEOS. Perfect, and I've got the local files. It looks like I am missing a file though. Yep, so I don't have anything that's ready to go. So I'm going to need some more files. Let's see if I can get this one. I do have an account with Arista. Yep. So this is just a free account. Anyone can sign up and install the files as long as you sign off on the terms of use. So we're going to need 1F. Oops, and all we've got is 3M. So 4.23.0.1F, all we've got is 3M. Let's see if they've got 1F in 2.2. Nope, just 5M. Here they've got 2F, but they don't have 1F anywhere. Here they've got 0F, so they've got 0F and they've got 2F, but they do not have 1F. And I appear to need 1F. There is kind of a trick that you can do with files. So yeah, I'm going to try that trick. So I've got, yeah, I'll try the trick. So it's going to be EVOS lab, and we'll go with the VMDK file. So we'll go with this file here, download it. Okay, so it's a little bit of a bigger file, about 0.5 gigabyte. Oh, don't want to check my email when I'm recording. I can do it on my screen one though, that I'm not sharing. Hopefully that will be done shortly. So 30 seconds isn't too long, and I can demo that trick. 29, 28 is not always accurate though. Could be longer, could be shorter too. Okay, so here's the trick. You can simply just rename the file because it's just looking for the name of the file. It will also run a file checksum on it, but the trick is that you have the ability to accept a checksum that doesn't match. So yep, it's almost exactly the same name, but instead of 3M, it's going to be .0, .1F. So now we can refresh. Oops, it still didn't find it. That's because I forgot the next step in the trick, and that's to import the file custom. Oops, and it looks like it's not. Okay. Yep, so now we're importing that custom file. We can see it's not the correct file. The MD5 checksum is different. Do you want to accept it at your own risks? Yes, I do, and that's the trick. So now it will upload it and use it for this. I haven't had trouble doing that. I've done that with a few other images, and it has run seamlessly. So it's I don't think, an issue. Yeah, the bugs I've been having with the CLI not coming back, with it not saving the last commit, those have been on Juniper VMX devices where it has been the same file with the same checksum. So I'm getting bugs on devices that are meant to be required files, but no bugs so far with custom files. So I think this is a perfectly fine way to set up an Arista in this case. One thing I wanted to explore a little bit now that I've got some time at some point was a special Cisco EEM template. But it looks like I can't do anything until this is done. So I'm going to pause the video and come back. All right, and I'm back. So it has finished uploading, so I can do next. Oops. So, oh, okay. So that's not the. Okay, so there is a workaround to this, but unfortunately I did not do it correctly. The workaround is going to be going next and then going switches, VEOS, install, and then it's going to be create a new version. Yep, so the version name is going to be, let's call it VEOS. And then, oh, we got to click allow custom files. Yep, and now create a new version. So the version is going to be oops, it's going to be in my, yeah. So we're going to name it this for the version name. There we go. So now it's ready to install. I've got a custom version, so we are good to go. So it's a multi-layer switch. It'll show up. I thought it would show up here. I don't see where it's showing up. I don't see it showing up anywhere. I can try. Yeah, let me try exiting and re-entering. Ah, here we go. So Arista, EVOS. So let's start it, and hopefully there are no issues. Perfect. So you can see that is a workaround. Sometimes if they don't have the exact version, you can just create a custom version using custom files. And if it works, you're good. And then you can see in that message, GNS would like feedback because they don't always know which versions work and which versions do not work. And the most efficient way, the easiest way for them to find out is if users tell them. So hopefully this is going to work. I guess there's no guarantees until I get to the CLI. But not quite there yet. Looks very promising though. So this is for network module conditional. I'll move the bookmark ahead. Oops, yeah, here's my email I had up before. Okay. So I think getting through 2% of the book isn't the worst thing in the world. So that just means that I would need to do 200 videos to get all the way through the book, which is a lot of videos. If each video is, oh, sorry, actually it's better news than that. It means it would only take 50 videos to make it all the way through the book if I do 2% of the book each video. Because if I do 100% of the book in one video, it would only require one video. 50% would require 2 videos. So 1%, 100, but 2%, it would only require 50 videos to get through. So right now I'm up to 20, so it's a lot more videos, but it seems very doable. I did get through about 2%. It'd be nice if I could get to the 33 to make sure I'm doing at least 2%, because 50 videos I think is kind of the maximum amount of videos I would want. If I did 100 videos, I'd only need to do 1% of the book in each video, which I think is very doable. So now we're completing EOS initialization. So I think I can just leave it to work. I don't need to skip that. So I might end the video now though, because making it through 2% of the book, that means I'm capped out at 50 videos, which is a good number of videos. I could keep it running and get through 3 or 4% of the book and have a fewer number of total videos, but I don't think that's super important. So yep, I think I'm going to cut it here. And then when I come back, we'll be looking into network module conditional on an Arista. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.